Who is ready for an episode chock full of TIFU? And the very first story is literally something I've done myself. This is good. So this is Vince, by the way. Let's just start this RR Show episode right now. All right, so here we go. Our first story comes from user Anonymous Foreplay. TIFU by using my in-laws' bidet. So as the title implies, my husband and I are currently visiting his family for a week. This is the first time I've stayed at their house, and I noticed all three of their toilets happen to have a simple bidet attachment. Now, I'd never used a bidet before this visit, and with it being a simple two-setting attachment instead of the much more intimidating luxury bidet units, I figured I'd try it out while getting ready for bed. Ended up enjoying it, except for one problem. The way this particular bidet works, it has a knob that can turn right or left, with each side having a different setting you can use. And the more you turn it, the stronger the water pressure gets. The only thing was, I couldn't quite figure out what the difference between the two settings is supposed to be. They're only labeled with simple icons, and one looks like a butt getting sprayed, while the other has an arrow shaped kind of like an 8, if the bottom half was a triangle. Using both settings felt just fine on myself, but the water streams also felt identical no matter what I picked. So I got the bright idea to try turning on the bidet while not sitting on the toilet to see if I could spot a visual difference. Some of you can probably guess where this is going. After I did my business and flushed, I reopened the lid and turned the knob to the lowest pressure on one of the settings. This ended up being too low to see anything other than a trickle down the side of the bowl. So I turned it up to the next pressure level. Big mistake. Immediately, the water streams shoot up and out of the toilet, spraying me directly in the stomach. I quickly grabbed the knob and yanked it in the other direction to turn it off. However, in my panic, I forgot one crucial thing. Remember how I said the two settings were on the left and right of the knob? This puts the off position directly in the center. So when I yanked the knob in the other direction to turn it off, I overcorrected and put the other setting on full blast. At that point, I started panicking even more and yanked it back in the other direction once again, over and over and over, while unable to figure out why the water wasn't turning off, until finally my rational brain caught up and I forced myself to turn the knob slowly until it was squarely in the center. And thankfully, that got the water to turn off at last. But not before I had sprayed toilet water all over the bathroom floor and myself. So now my pajamas are soaked, my husband is laughing his ass off at me, and I'm still no closer to figuring out what each setting is supposed to be used for. Here's hoping the water I couldn't wipe up with the extra toilet paper at least dries up before tomorrow morning. Our second story in this TIFU episode comes from Espionage. TIFU by causing a car accident. I feel so bad about this. It literally just happened. So I'm on a walk through some residential areas of town, and to my right is one of the town's main roads. No problem. I'm just walking straight and about to cross the road when a lady driving on the main road turns on her blinker to turn right. She would have been cutting in front of me to turn into her neighborhood. Instead of completing the turn through, she locks eyes with me and smiles, slows down, and decides to let me cross the street before she makes her turn. How nice, I think. Except, bang! The car behind her wasn't paying attention, and he rear ends her hard. And the front of his car crumples. The sound was insane. This all happened in the span of seconds. and I happened to be looking straight at the spot where their cars made contact. After it happens, I just stand and stare for a few seconds with my jaw wide open. I couldn't believe it. The lady lost her rear bumper, but her car came out relatively okay. The other guy's car is effed. Neighbors that heard the crash came out to see what had happened. Auspiciously, there had been a police officer speaking with someone right on the other side of the street. They jumped into action, radioed for help, and started directing traffic. There was an ambulance on the scene in like 20 to 30 seconds. Thankfully, everyone came out unscathed, besides the emotional trauma, lol. And realistically, this lady was being way too nice. She should have just completed her turn and not slowed down for me. But I still can't help but feel guilty. Literally, a difference of a few seconds either way, and I wouldn't have been in that exact spot, and she would have just completed her turn. Offered her my contact info in case she needs a witness for anything, but since the officer also saw the accident, she figured it would be fine. Praying for this lady that everything works out. And if you're reading this, follow the rules of the road, people. Our next story, and our third story, continuing in the r/TIFU theme of this episode, comes from Undercover Union 145. TIFU by drinking on my wedding day. When I met my wife, I was severely overweight and decided a couple years after dating to love myself and lose weight before I got married. I lost a good amount of weight on my own, but during our engagement, I decided I would try a nutritionist and program to get in my best shape for the wedding. During that time, I was on the keto diet, and the month before the wedding went pretty strict and even abstained from alcohol. That's the basic background for leading up to the wedding. Now on to the day. So I am the lightest I have ever been, feeling good and still going strong, no carbs. But I was nervous as hell. I married the most beautiful and kindest woman I know. I didn't feel worthy of her love, but knew it was going to be all right. Naturally, since my best man was getting ready with me, he offered me to drink a first beer, but I didn't want the carbs, so instead a few shots of vodka. Low carbs, so cool, I'm down. I had about 3 shots, which after they hit, helped calm me down. After the church, about 2 hours later, we had a couple of more drinks on the bus going to pictures before the reception. I was shocked with how hard these drinks were hitting me, but enjoying the time and not thinking much of it. I had eaten that day, but again, no carbs. This is where it is important to know, and I had no way of knowing at the time. Carbs break down alcohol to be processed in the liver. So if you're not having any carbs, you're gonna get more drunk for longer. Now we are at the photos in a beautiful park, and I am hammered. I stumbled through the photos, but not messing them up too much, luckily. After the photos, we have another drink and head to the reception. Now, I can usually handle my liquor, but today I could not hold anything. When we get to the reception, I barely remember anything, so everything here on was told to me the next day when I woke up in a hospital bed. Apparently, the beginning of the night went smooth, and we got through first dances, dinners, and speeches. Then the party really started. Apparently, when Mr. Worldwide came on, I took my shirt off and was swinging it around. Gave my new wife an impromptu lap dance, everyone thought it was funny, and did shots with my grandmother. Then, as the night was wrapping up, I wanted some dessert and went to get myself a piece of cake. We had been gifted a cake cutting set by my parents that had been a family heirloom. Now at this point, I was starting to experience alcohol poisoning, and as I went to cut the cake, I passed out and fell drunk onto the knife. It went into my forearm, and I was bleeding decently. My wife ran up to me, getting blood on her dress, clearly white, and I was transported to get my stomach pumped, the blade removed from my arm, and to get my arm stitched up. Then, as the night was wrapping up, I wanted some dessert and went to get myself a piece of cake. We had been gifted a cake cutting set by my parents that had been a family heirloom. Now at this point, I was starting to experience alcohol poisoning, and as I went to cut the cake, I passed out and fell onto the knife. It went into my forearm, and I was bleeding decently. My wife ran up to me, getting blood in her dress, clearly white, and I was transported to get my stomach pumped, the blade removed, and my arm stitched up. While my wife was understandably furious, she was happy it only happened near the end of the night when guests had left and I was okay. Needless to say, I always have pizza when I drink now. The fourth story in this TIFU episode comes from kids who love pomegranate. TIFU by exposing my chest to a friend after rejecting him. Today, a family friend and I decided to explore an abandoned school in our city. It's important to note that me and this friend don't know each other nor see each other very often. We're basically situational friends that hang out when our parents decided to see each other. Today, we decided to hang out one-on-one for the first time. As it turned out, we were both into lost places and urban exploring. To get into this building, we had to jump a pretty tall metal fence, and since I am quite short, I needed him to jump it first so he can help me get down the other side. This is important. Once we get in, we start exploring. This building was very big, so we spent about 2 hours going around until we got to the basement, where we sat down in a little nook. There, he started to get physically close to me, not something he's ever done before, and started asking me romantic and sexual questions about relationships and my sex life, etc., until he confessed and asked if he could kiss me. I said no. He then attempted to persuade me by saying that it's just a kiss and that I should loosen up and stop taking life too seriously. Average teenage boy speech. I repeatedly said no and that I'm not interested in him like that. He then got a little upset and refuses to get up since he knew I was dependent on him to get out of there due to the fence situation. This made me very uncomfortable and scared to where I basically begged him to start going as it was getting late and cold. Once we made it out of the window and by the fence, he jumps over first so he can help me down. It's important to note that it's a metal fence where the metal doesn't stick out the same way on both sides. It was much more difficult to get out than in. Once he makes it over, I start climbing, but keep slipping. Once I'm almost finally at the top, my shirt gets caught on a piece of metal that's sticking out on the top, and I slip with an almost cartoonish ripping sound, leaving me hanging to the fence by my shirt and bra that are now only around my neck, with my whole upper body exposed. And this dude just stares from across the fence. I proceed to struggle for a few seconds while this dude stands and laughs, until I give up and slip out of my shirt and bra completely, leaving me completely shirtless in a German fall at night, while he just stands on the opposite side of the fence and kind of laughing. I eventually make it over the fence, still shirtless. He gives me his jacket. On the way back, he constantly made comments like, "You didn't want to kiss me, but you gave me all that even without asking," and various remarks on how I looked, basically hung up naked. Not planning on seeing that guy anytime soon. The final story in this all TIFU episode comes from Specific Front 3663. TIFU by buying one ticket for 3 people to a sold-out game. My older son, a sports fanatic, is a student at a high school with a very successful football program. The school is out of district, but he goes there because it offers a unique course selection that suits his interests and strengths. That's the good part. The bad part is this school is clear across the county, which is a large one by East Coast standards. He always wants to go to the football games, and we go when we can, But with other things going on and it being far away, this year we have only been to one. His younger brother, who's in middle school, sometimes tags along with us. Yesterday, my son played its most hated rival. This game is a big deal in this area and is known to always sell out. It was an away game, and the rival school is in the neighboring district to my son's school. So, still quite far away from us. Fortunately, we had another event in that part of the county in the morning. So the plan was to hit that event, then go to the game in the afternoon. On Halloween night, I went to the site our county requires you to use to buy tickets and placed my order for 3. So we do our thing in the morning, then go to the rival high school. We wait 15 minutes to park. Then we wait in a really long line, only to find out at the front that if our group includes a non-student minor, we have to go to another line, which is not quite as long, but still long. We make it almost to the front. Kickoff is about 5 minutes away, so despite all the hassle, we're still in good shape. The group in front of us is getting its tickets checked, so I pull up my confirmation email, click on the link for my tickets, and there's only one ticket. I frantically search and find my order history, and yep, I only bought and was charged for 1. I am flabbergasted, as I have used this site plenty of times and know how to order these tickets. The lady checking tickets was sympathetic, but could do nothing as it was a sellout. My son was crushed. As we slinked back to our car, it dawned on me what happened. The card I initially tried to use to order the tickets wasn't going through for some reason. When I used a different one, the website must have reset the form so that the pull down went back to 1 ticket instead of staying at 3. That was little consolation, as I had to ask the police officers to move the cones blocking the now full parking lot so we could leave. So to make it up to my kids, I took them for barbecue and ice cream while they followed the game on Twitter. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. Thank you to my producer, Kevin, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.